Wealth alone doesn't guarantee permanence. Fortunes are won and lost every day, but families that embody the old money mindset seem to hold on to theirs across centuries. What exactly is their secret? Why do some families quietly pass wealth through 5, 6, or even 10 generations, while others lose it in just one? The answer isn't just in bank accounts or trust funds, it lies in psychology. And before we dive deep into the hidden psychology of generational wealth, don't forget to subscribe to The Luxury Lane, where we uncover the codes, habits, and mindsets of the world's elite. Stick with us to the end, because understanding how old money thinks could completely change how you view your own relationship with money, status, and legacy. Let's start with a truth that surprises many outsiders. Old money rarely flaunts itself. The psychology of generational wealth begins with discretion, where new money often displays success: fast cars, sprawling mansions, designer logos. Old money has trained itself for centuries to resist these temptations. Psychologists call this delayed gratification, but in the world of old money, it's more like family discipline. Wealth is not seen as a tool for instant pleasure, but as a responsibility to those who came before and to those who will come after. A Vanderbilt, an Astor, or a Rothschild doesn't spend for today's thrill. They spend, or more often invest, with the image of their descendants in mind. The old money mindset reframes every dollar as part of a much larger story. To waste it is to betray that story. Perhaps the most defining feature of the old money mindset is what we could call long-term vision. Where most people think in terms of paychecks, quarters, or maybe retirement plans, old money families think in terms of centuries. There's a famous Chinese proverb, "Wealth does not pass 3 generations." Old money families around the world are obsessed with proving it wrong. They do this by instilling one core belief: we are merely caretakers, not owners. This psychology reduces the urge to consume and increases the pressure to preserve. A new yacht might last 20 years. A foundation, an estate, or a stake in a bank can last indefinitely if guarded carefully. That's why many aristocratic families in Europe still own the same lands, vineyards, or townhouses they held in the 18th century. These assets were never seen as disposable luxuries. They were anchors, pillars, holding the family name steady across time. Identity before wealth. Another key piece of the old money mindset is identity. For the ultra-wealthy families of history, money was never their only definition. They often prioritized family reputation, cultural refinement, and social contribution above sheer financial power. Why? Because money comes and goes, but identity can survive a financial storm. The Rockefellers are known for philanthropy. The Rothschilds are tied to banking. The Medicis were remembered as patrons of art. By anchoring their family name to something beyond raw capital, they ensured survival even when markets shifted. Psychologically, this creates resilience. A family member raised with the belief that we are builders, patrons, and leaders will act differently from someone who believes we are rich, therefore we can do whatever we want. The first is an identity that sustains wealth. The second is a mindset that destroys it. Education as a weapon. Old money families do not just hope their children understand money, they engineer it. Education is not simply about academics, it's about molding character. From elite boarding schools to carefully chosen mentors, every step is designed to teach responsibility, etiquette, and financial acumen. This is where psychology merges with culture. Children in old money households grow up absorbing 1,000 subtle lessons. How to sit at a table, how to introduce themselves, how to carry silence, how to respect tradition. These lessons may seem minor, but they build a subconscious framework of belonging. The hidden message is always the same. You are part of something larger, and your role is to protect it. By the time these children inherit assets, they've already internalized the values required to sustain them. Contrast that with sudden lottery winners or overnight entrepreneurs who often crumble under the weight of unexpected fortune. Without that framework, psychology bends toward excess and wealth evaporates. The psychology of restraint. Perhaps the greatest paradox of generational wealth is restraint. The richest families in the world are often the least flashy. This isn't by accident. It's a deeply ingrained psychological tactic. Extravagance signals weakness. Frugality signals strength. Old money knows this. That's why their fashion is understated, their homes timeless rather than trendy, and their wealth often hidden behind trusts, shells, and quiet investments. The psychology is subtle but powerful. If you never need to prove your wealth, you never risk losing the dignity attached to it. A quiet confidence emerges, one that new money often struggles to replicate. Wealth as duty, not freedom. To most people, money equals freedom. The freedom to buy, to travel, to indulge. For old money, money equals duty. A duty to preserve, a duty to grow, a duty to represent the family. This shift in perspective transforms psychology. Freedom is fleeting. Duty is stabilizing. When wealth becomes an obligation rather than a toy, the chances of reckless collapse diminish dramatically. It's why even centuries later, old money families continue to exist in the background of global affairs, less visible than the tech billionaires, but quietly pulling strings through foundations, trusts, and discreet investments. The power of secrecy. One of the least understood but most powerful psychological tools of old money is secrecy. While new wealth often shouts from the rooftops, old wealth whispers if it speaks at all. This silence isn't accidental, it's a shield. A billionaire flaunting a super yacht may attract envy, lawsuits, or opportunists. A family who keeps their assets tucked into layers of trusts, holding companies, and discrete estates attracts far less attention. Secrecy also shapes mindset. If you are taught from childhood that family details, finances, and even daily habits must remain private, you internalize discretion. This protects not just wealth, but stability. It's why you rarely see tabloids filled with scandals about old banking dynasties or European aristocrats. Their training in secrecy keeps them protected. Their lives are designed to be unremarkable in public and unshakable in private. Rituals that reinforce identity. Another cornerstone of the old money psyche is ritual. These families understand that money alone is fragile, but culture, when ritualized, becomes almost impossible to destroy. Think of family dinners where silver cutlery has been used for 5 generations, or annual gatherings at a countryside estate where traditions are passed on in whispered stories and toasts. These rituals may seem small, but psychologically they reinforce continuity. To a child, polishing the same heirloom silver their great-grandparents once touched sends a powerful message. You are part of a line. You are not here by chance. You carry history. Psychologists know that identity shapes behavior. Old money families use rituals to weld identity to wealth, so that losing either feels like losing oneself. This attachment discourages reckless decisions, reminding each generation, your choices are not just yours, they affect the entire family legacy. Marriage as strategy, not romance. While love is celebrated in novels, old money often views marriage through a different lens: strategy. Historically, alliances between wealthy families weren't just about emotion. They were psychological contracts designed to merge fortunes, preserve estates, and strengthen influence. This mindset still exists today, though it has evolved. Many heirs and heiresses are subtly encouraged to marry within their circle. Not just for money, but for shared values, shared discretion, and shared psychology. It's less about romance and more about safeguarding legacy. An extravagant spender or reckless socialite brought into the family could destabilize centuries of discipline. A partner raised with similar values, however, becomes a stabilizing force. The psychology here is cold but clear. Family comes first, feelings second. That's how dynasties last. The risk paradox. When it comes to money, psychology plays a peculiar role in risk. Most of us are either risk-averse or risk-seeking. But old money is both strategically, they are cautious with spending, yet bold with investments. They don't gamble wealth on flashy opportunities, but they do place long-term bets that others shy away from. Think of aristocratic families buying land centuries ago, or old industrial families quietly backing new industries. Psychologically, this balance comes from a unique comfort. They can afford patience. If you're not desperate for instant returns, you can take calculated risks and wait decades for results. That patience often multiplies wealth in ways short-term thinkers cannot grasp. This paradox, cautious in lifestyle, bold in vision, is one of the most powerful psychological divides between old and new wealth. Quiet confidence. If there is one trait that defines the old money mindset, it is quiet confidence. You'll notice it in their body language, their understated homes, their avoidance of trends. This confidence doesn't come from flaunting success, but from knowing that success is already established. They don't need to prove anything to anyone. Psychologists call this intrinsic security, a sense of worth that comes from within, rather than from external validation. This quiet confidence makes them less reactive to crises. When markets fall, when recessions hit, when wealth is tested, they do not panic publicly. They continue living as if nothing has changed. And often, when the storm passes, they emerge stronger, having acquired assets from those who panicked. Wealth as a language. To old money, wealth is not just numbers, it is a language. It dictates how you dress, how you speak, how you host, how you interact. It's not about wealth itself, but about signaling control over wealth. That's why old money homes may feature antique rugs, inherited paintings, or libraries filled with generations of books, not flashy marble waterfalls or neon-lit foyers. The psychology behind this is subtle. Show heritage, not extravagance. It's a way of saying, we belong to a tradition. We have nothing to prove. Stewardship over ownership. Perhaps the most profound psychological distinction between old money and everyone else is how they view wealth itself. For most, money is a possession. For old money, it is stewardship. This belief transforms everything. If you see yourself as an owner, wealth feels temporary, something you can use, enjoy, or even waste because it is yours. But if you see yourself as a steward, the perspective shifts entirely. You are only holding the wealth for a time. You are responsible for it, not entitled to it. This mindset is why old estates are rarely sold, why family companies stay under the same surname for generations, and why so much of their wealth is locked into trusts. The money isn't theirs, it belongs to the family, to the ancestors who built it, and to the descendants who haven't been born yet. That sense of duty, almost sacred in tone, creates discipline that few outsiders can fully understand. Humility as strategy. It may sound ironic, but humility is a weapon in the old money arsenal. True, arrogance exists in all classes, but the families that last are the ones that train their children in subtlety and modesty. Why? Because arrogance is expensive. Flaunting invites envy, scandal, and waste. Humility, on the other hand, creates safety. It disarms critics. It protects privacy. It allows wealth to grow quietly without constant attention. Many old money heirs wear worn leather shoes, understated jewelry, and drive cars that are practical rather than glamorous. Not because they cannot afford more, but because psychologically it anchors them. It signals to themselves and others that they are not defined by wealth. This humility is not weakness, it's strategy. Legacy over lifestyle. Another key psychological trait. Old money prioritizes legacy over lifestyle. A person chasing lifestyle is focused on today, luxury vacations, social status, possessions. A person obsessed with legacy thinks about what their grandchildren will inherit. Not just wealth, but name, reputation, and influence. This is why old money builds libraries, art collections, and charitable foundations. Not because they simply enjoy them, but because these things cement their place in history. To them, True luxury is not a penthouse suite, it's knowing that their name will still matter a century from now. That kind of long-term thinking changes how every choice is made. Resilience through structure. Old money knows that individuals can falter, but structures can endure. That's why their wealth is often embedded in family offices, legal trusts, private foundations, and carefully layered investments. This structure isn't just financial, it's psychological armor. It tells each generation, you are not alone. The system protects you, but you must also protect the system. That's why so many family members end up in roles connected to these structures, serving as trustees, board members, or guardians of legacy projects. The structure becomes a living organism, one that outlives any single member. And with structure comes resilience. Market crashes, wars, scandals, even these rarely destroy dynasties that have fortified their wealth through layers of systems. It's important to acknowledge that this mindset also creates distance. The psychology of generational wealth often results in a quiet separation from the rest of society. Because when you're raised to think not in years, but in centuries, when you're told from birth that your role is to protect something larger than yourself, you begin to live in a different mental world. This separation can seem cold, but it is part of what preserves wealth. It allows old money to resist trends, ignore fads, and anchor itself in stability, while others are swept away by cultural shifts. It is both their strength and their mystery. At its core, the old money mindset is less about wealth and more about psychology. It is discipline disguised as tradition, humility disguised as habit, and patience disguised as power. Where others see money as freedom, old money sees it as responsibility. Where others live for today, old money plans for tomorrow. Where others flaunt, old money hides. And it's this psychology, not just the money itself, that keeps their names echoing through history, while countless other fortunes vanish without a trace. Wealth fades, mindset endures,